Hi guys.
Okay.
Everyone knows me, so I'll skip that part. Today I have a quick presentation on risks. What is the risk and why are you spending this time rather than work on your projects, right? So is there anyone familiar with this game? Maybe Mariusz is. Are you familiar with this one?
No.
The risks. It's a, you never played this board game. No one did.
I have.
Okay, so you play. So okay, so we have some kind of a hookup line to the rest of my presentation. Basically, the table of contents is like that. First of all, if someone wouldn't find this presentation worthy, there is a set of funny animals in the right corner, and every slide there is a funny animal. So I'll guys keep you entertained instead if this turns out to be of no use. So basically, table of contents. I will talk about what is a risk and what is a risk in our business, so in projects, obviously. Characteristics of one, what isn't the risks. Then we go to the part which I called hold up, why I'm sitting here at this lighting talk listening to this shit. And then risk management, assessing the risks, risk matrix. So now we go to the technicals and how can we work with that. Types of reactions to the risks, and okay, thanks for wasting my time, and now what? What can I get out of that? So I guess even for the pessimists and the people who are not really interested in those parts, I think they should have something that they can take out from this meeting. So enough with the crap and let's go. So this is the first animal, by the way. It's a pack gorilla. Not funny? Okay, thanks for keeping my spirit up. Okay, so what is a risk and what is a risk in a project? So basically, the Oxford Dictionary, so the English guru for all that there is, so we can name that. A risk is an exposition of someone or something valued to a danger, harm, or loss. So it means that it's a probability that something is going to have a smaller, lesser value, or someone, for example, will cut their hand during cutting an onion or something, right? So this is probably a very basic definition that you guys are familiar with your daily lives. For example, Staszek probably is familiar with risks and kids getting sick throughout the weekend, so you incorporate it into your daily routine and so on. But when it comes to Prince2 manual, so another guru body that handles project management in this part of the world, project risk is a set of events that, should they occur, will have an effect on achieving the project objectives. So basically, we just replace someone of something valued with the project objectives, and basically it's just like a kid but a project. Okay, so this part is understandable for everyone so far. Yeah. Okay, thanks, cool. Yeah, so duplication of animation. Characteristics of a risk. It's a crocodile bear. This part is very important. Risks or risk doesn't mean necessarily that there are only threats to happen, but risks might also be connected to some positive outcome or an opportunity. You may say like, what? It doesn't make sense, but let me give you that. You are in the bar and you see a nice girl you would like to talk to, and the risk is that you guys will get familiar, and it's a positive outcome. But the other risk is that you're going to make a fool of yourself, and what you have to do is to calculate what are your options and which is the most viable. So something positive might come out of it, but also something negative you can make out of it. It doesn't mean that all risks have positive and negative aspects. Some of them have only positive or neutral, or some of them have only negative. So you shouldn't be interlinking those between each other. Risk means that there is something uncertain, a chance that happens. Yeah, that's a typo. Once risk materializes, it's not a risk, it's something that happened, right? So when the girl you've been talking to at a bar flashes her glass with a drink on your face, you're not risking making a fool out of yourself. You already did. You are this fool, right? So it's not a risk anymore. It's just that something happened. So you cannot classify risks as things in the past, so because they are written in history, and that's that, right? be sure to remember about it, because some people are trying to manage some kind of fallouts of risks as risk, which is a fallacy, right? It doesn't make sense. It's trying to rewrite history once again, and it's not possible with our current technology. So that's that. But what isn't a risk, right? So risk definition implies uncertainty. Certain events are not risks. There are collateral damage that have to be accepted. That means that if you're in a bar and you'd like to talk to this girl, but you know you're that ugly that actually you know that you're not going to pull it through, it's not a risk that she's going to reject you. This is the way it's going to be no matter what you do, right? So it's, again, it's not a risk, it's certain. So you cannot treat certain things and certain events as risks. And this is another fallacy one has to avoid to successfully do it. So, to rabbit park, by the way. So in other words, for example, if your kid catches fever on Sunday, you wouldn't be able to go to work on Monday. This is a risk, because this kid can catch a cold or fever or whatever, but it is not certain, maybe except for yours. But if your kid actually did catch fever and you can show up in the office, it doesn't mean you're risking anything. This is just the way things are, not the risks. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
Cool. So now we go to the fun part. Hold up, why I'm sitting here listening to this, where is KFC, should be here in a minute, whatever. So now that we know what risks are, we can work on those and we can apply them to our daily lives and also in our business world. So being aware of uncertainty, of some uncertainty, another type of some aspects, lets you focus on those parts and mitigate possible effects of them. So a simple example from our background, there is majówka coming and most of the office people are flipping meats on the grill instead of being in the office, right? For us it's pretty natural. Majówka is always in the same time of the year, but for example for our clients it's not that possible, it's not that normal, and they're pretty oblivious to that, so you have to make them informed. But what happens if there is an outage in production environment, and we know they always are in majówka, what will happen then? Our clients will obviously lose money if things are not working out. So you have to do something about this risk, because it's possible that you have an outage, but then again it's not fully probable that will happen, so it's a risk, right? So you have to mitigate the effects of the risk. In order for it, when it materializes, you decrease the fallout. So the problematic events that are connected with what happened. So usually how we mitigate it. Team establishes firewalls during the majówka. In case of fire, they are breaking the glass and they're making the magic work again, right? Pretty simple. Or not. All right. A cat with a flower, whatever. Risks management. So basically, as you know, all processes and everything can be written down to a flow that circulates around some point. So basically, you can say any dump comment on anything, but this is actually something that has been certified from the Prince2 organization in Great Britain, so it's pretty legit. The thing is that the risk management is something of a circle flow, and it goes on, and you revisit the things on and on, because it requires constant monitoring activities. So in other words, even if you assess the risk and you mitigate its effects, or you completely take rid of it, it doesn't mean it's not going to go back, right? So all the time. So what happens in this circle? First of all, you have to identify the risks, then you assess their gravity, their impact on your shit, and once you know how big the impact is, you can plan the possible mitigation plan, implement it into go back to the square one, so you identify more risk or re-identify this risk as something that goes back or repeats itself due to, I don't know, some. You know how it is, guys. A kid can get sick all the time, right? No matter what kind of mitigation plan you apply, right? It's just how the world is. And in the circle we've got communication, but I don't think I have to explain this, why Why do we put it inside? Because teamwork and cross thinking over the risk lets you understand what are different perspectives on the risk gravity, on the risk impact, and whenever you talk about it with the stakeholders, you can actually pinpoint the very real value of this risk and with how big of a problem we are dealing right now. If you do it by yourself, you're just a kid in the mist. So that's that, yeah. And how can one assess the risk? This is my cat, by the way. He turned 13 and he's so old that he's having problem with maintaining, he cannot hold the piss anymore. But he's cute.
But it's not a risk.
Yeah, exactly. The risk was when I grabbed him and I squeezed him, then it materialized. It actually did happen 1 week ago. So assessing the risk. Risk has essentially two values that are key for its proper assessment, right? A nice sentence. So likelihood of occurrence. So usually we have a value between 0 and 5, when 0 is 0% chance of something is about to happen, and 5 is almost impossible not to happen. So it's almost likely to happen. Likely to happen. It's unlikely to almost not happen. So you know, it's like it's hard to explain, but if you think about it, if it will happen, it's not a risk, right? So it's just getting back to square one. And the impact, where 0 is negligible impact on the things, and 5 is something that we just go home because we can just close the business and that's it. Depending on these values, we can pinpoint these risks to a following table, so we know how big the problem is in comparison to other problems, right? So check out this risk matrix, which is also not invented by me, but by some British, very wise people offshore, right? So you have here two axes. One is probability, the second one is impact. And as you can see, very low is 0, and very high is 5. Anything in between are the numbers in between. So I guess I don't have to explain it to you guys how this works. So low impact, low probability stuff you put here, and things that will probably happen and will have a critical impact on our project are going here. The rest is in between. So why are we doing that? So we can see which are the problematic parts and which we don't care about. So whenever you are faced with a plethora, multiple risks in a project, you have to do the thing that you always do first. So assess the priorities. So what thing we have to take care of first when you have a lot of things. So the things that you take care of the most are extreme ones, because they have the biggest impact and the biggest likelihood of happening, right? So first things first, then you can go to the high, and then you can go to medium, and to, well, no one goes here. No one cares, right? But basically, now you know what to tackle first. First things first, priorities first, everyone is like that. So you draw something like it, you pinpoint the position, and now you know when are you gonna get fired from your job. So now we know how to pinpoint it, and now we know what to take care of, but now you think, all right, so now what do we do about them? Because there are different types of things we can do with the risks, right? So then again, we again go to the guys from Great Britain, and they, in this big Prince 2 guide, are displaying following types of reactions to risk. So remember, the threat and opportunity, so there is a good one, there is a bad one. So basically, the threat. You can avoid a threat, right? So take action so the threat no longer has impact or can no longer happen. Can you avoid the risks? Not all the time, but you can do something about it to completely mitigate an impact or completely mitigate probability. It's unusual, but it is doable in some cases. Do you guys need an example or following on that? Okay, I'll assume yes. Reducing is the same thing, but not to the very 0. So you reduce something, but still take into the equation that might happen. It's usually something that is much more cheaper than avoiding, but it depends how much time you have or what kind of budget we are aiming at to have. Fallback, so it's a plan that you already established for this occurrence, so if shit hits the fan, you know what to do. So you're not reducing it, you're just prepared for the oblivion, right? And transferring the financial risk to another party, so in other words, insurance, right? So things are going bad, but someone is paying up the money, so we're good. Sharing is finding some party that is going to share losses. So for example, we hire an external guy, and when the stuff is going on the bad side of the project, we can blame everything at him. He's a guy, like, yeah, I mean, you know, like, I'm not pointing any fingers, right? But you guys know what I'm talking about. And my personal favorite is the acceptance. So, you know, the risk is going to, there is a risk, but no one cares, right? Whatever. But it has to be a very vivid and it has to be conscious decision, right? Not caring about risks is not that acceptance of risks. It's not caring about the risk. So whatever happens, happens. This is that you know it can happen. You know that there is going to be foul. You know someone will lose money. But for example, you will say, taking care of this will cost us more than actually having this loss at all. So why bother? And this is what a lot of companies do. For the opportunities, there is a small similarity, but not quite. Sharing, so same as above. Find some dude that is going to share your success. Like, you can bring a friend to this girl you met. You can enhance is where you take actions to improve the likelihood of the event occurring and enhance the impact of the opportunity should occur. So you either use perfumes or, I don't know, try to, I don't know, take a beer or two to get, you know, courageous before you talk to her. So you increase the maybe not an impact, but probability. It's a good pun if you think about it. Exploiting is where if the risk does happen, you would take advantage of it and use it. So you just roll with it. So you go to a girl, you don't do anything about it. But if it goes, right? So zero effort, right? Exactly. And the rest one is rejecting. Take a decision about not caring. So there is a girl, but maybe you'll come to her or not. Maybe you'll talk to her, whatever. Again, it has to be same decision. So these are the types of reaction to risks. I know it's a little bit confusing for a moment, but if you think about it, this is quite intelligent. And we'll go to the part when it gets really interesting for you guys. Because, okay, thanks for wasting my time, now what? Thanks for insights, Victor, and stuff. But how can I apply this to my daily routine and to my work at Visuality? So, situation is like that. Let's say you are a project team member, and the team is composed of 3 backend developers and 1 front street boy. You know that the front-end developer has some problems with law and is sometimes summoned by court to show up here and there. So, you know, his availability is a little bit shaky. What can you do to avoid bottlenecks as a team leader, as a team member, as a project manager? Do you guys have any ideas? Well, worry not, because I wrote it down, so we can talk about them. These are the options we can have on the table if we think about it. So if it comes to avoidance of these risks, we can avoid the probability of him getting summoned by the court, so we can ask for a presidential pardon, but it's rather costly. Michał would have to take a call, and he's busy, right, to his friends. Probably they know. Or you can, for example, turn the colleague over for someone else with greater availability. So we just tell him that, sorry, mate, but we need someone who is 100% available, and we find someone else within the office, right? So we avoid the impact. Are you following that? All right, it's a familiar example. Terrific. Reducing. So we can reduce the probability, but not to the very zero, or reduce impact. So we can either ask the colleague about some timetable of court hearings, so we can plan in advance, or we can plan sprints accordingly to potential absences and declaring less value to a client every sprint. How we reduce the impact of his absence. Are you seeing the difference between those two? Which one seems to you more costly to us?
The more costly one is the first one, the avoidance.
Absolutely, because it takes down one of the parameters to 0, which comes at greater cost, obviously. Thanks. Fallback. So fallback means we have a fallback plan. So we discuss the situation with the higher level guys, and whenever that happens, we stop the sprint and reinitiate a new, focusing only on backend related increment. So we know it might happen, but we're not reacting like girls in the park seeing a bear, but we know what to do. We stop the sprint, everyone knows what to do. We sit again, we do the purely backend sprint. The show goes on, no one is mad because everyone took in the cooperation that it happens, and we deal with that. Thanks. Transfer. Hire a full-time third-party dev to reduce bottleneck and increase bus factor to 2. Yeah, we got it. We can share, so find a third-party developer willing to fill in the shoes in case of a court hearing. So whenever our guy is out, we put a new guy from out of town, and he's doing basically the same thing. It's rather not implementable, but it's an option if you want to share it. And you can accept it, whatever, life's life. I'm not going to pretend we can do something about anything. So your client is calling, why you guys are not working? Because someone has a court hearing. Like, what can I do? But it has to be, once again, a sane decision to be made by someone. So now you guys know what are the options. Now you know how you can apply that into the real life, right? But the real question is, which one of those actions that could be undertaken is the best? This is something for me. I think the one that is the best is that has the best ratio of direct result and fallout to cost. So you pick the one that has the best result, and you also take into consideration what it will implicate in the long term, and divide it by the cost of implementation. So then you know which one is maybe not viable, but the best one in the current situation. And also the one that doesn't make you a jerk in front of colleagues also is something that you should take as a factor, but not everybody does that. Guess why? Because they're jerks. So yeah, this is the last animal that is very dear to me. And this is also the final slide of my presentation, so I'm right now open to questions if you have any. Go ahead.
Whose responsibility is to do risk management in projects?
It depends on the project. It is it's when it comes to how Prince 2 states that it is to project manager to assign someone. He can be assigned himself, but
the circle?
The circle of life?
Yes, this one.
Yes.
So in Prince 2 you say that the project manager should assess the risk, but how about the other parts? So can project manager identify the risks also?
He can. In Prince 2 methodology, there isn't a certain sentence that says someone is responsible for risk management. It is up to the stakeholders and then again to project manager to assign someone to do all of that, to be a final person responsible. This is one of the methodology that actually assigns one person, but it doesn't say who should do that. It implies project manager, obviously.
And can anyone identify a risk?
Of course.
Register that?
Of course it can. But it's up to the team or the stakeholders to take it further. So some kind of, let's say, a cog in a bigger machine identified a risk, but he doesn't know the impact or the likelihood. It takes a lot of wise people to actually assess it right and take it further into the plan phase.
And should the risk matrix be visible to everyone or just to project manager and the team?
I wouldn't say it shouldn't be. This makes people aware how big deals we have to take care of. But I can see few examples where it shouldn't be visible to, for example, clients. Some of risks can be purely operational and people just don't care and call it technical jibber-jabber. Trust me.
Okay, with my experience, why risk management is good, it avoids micromanagement because everyone sees something bad going to happen and they want to tell about it, and when they're not able to, they're trying to micromanage. And whenever there is such thing like risk matrix, and when I'm telling that we will register this as a risk, they're saying that, okay, just let me know like what's happening with this risk itself. So what is the mitigation plan, so I will feel more comfortable. And that's why I was asking that should risk matrix be seenable by everyone?
For the sake of comforting people, I think absolutely so. But it's not a comforting tool, it's dealing with actual numbers and money, but in a very simple way.
And are we using risk management?
I'm using myself.
How?
I'm accepting everything.
This is live.
Yeah.
This is also live.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Another question from the
Can you go to the next slide?
audience. The next one.
Exactly this one, because I am about this, like actually interesting about this notation because of those brackets. So because the 5 means it's not like 100%, it's like 9.
Very likely to happen.
So like, because I was wondering, so would it be better notation like to put a 5 and with curly bracket, let's say at the end, you know? At the
Yes, but please remember I'm not a technical person.
Yeah, that's interesting. But then 5 wouldn't be included in the. Yeah. So it's more like 5 is lineless, or
And the zeros shouldn't be included.
because but 0 is possible actually to achieve, yeah. So 0%, so it can be included.
Absolutely, it can. But
But it's not a risk.
let's say, why are we taking? There is a reason why it's done like that. 0% risks.
0%, yeah?
This is important. If it's impossible right now, it doesn't mean you don't have to reevaluate it in a week.
Okay.
So, for example, someone is not sick, but in a week he can be,
Okay.
right? Because he's like, you know, very good healthy guy, he rides bicycles and shit, but you know, he can get hit by a bus next week and he's all ligaments torn, and now it's 5.
Okay.
Yes.
And with your experience, this risk management helped you?
Yeah, in different places I've worked, people were taking real care about it. The bigger the project, the bigger the organization, the bigger are the numbers here. So the risks are going in thousands of currencies, not to say millions. It depends on the scale, right? But basically this is a really simple tool to handle very complex things. It's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because in the assessment and the planning part, there are a lot of people who just specialize in risk assessments, and they have all those fancy Excel files, or they can calculate, incorporate all this stuff. There's like in banking sector, they have people for calculating only the risk for the credits, right? But basically, essentially, anyone can use that on the simple way, because you can assess the severity, the impact, or the likelihood on your own, because you guys are experts in your own field. But if it comes to taking people's last money, there is a lot of people involved in there, in banking sector. I assure you about that. All right, any other question? Do it.